Alright, subpart C, post-accident toxicological testing. The which for the testing growth and lift event with expect with the primary area of the BCB with the accident toxicological test must be conducted after during the event with involved in one or more with the circumstance as described in the paragraph A124 of the section major train accident, engineering of the incident, the railway equipment accident involved the damage of the after the current reporting threshold involved with one or more of the following: the fidelity relief of the hazard material leading with the railway equipment accompanied by an evacuation, portable injury resulting in hazard material relief of the fire, explosion, inhalation, skin contact with the material. 3, the damage of the railroad property of $1 million or more, the impact of the incident and the accident, the incident of the railway equipment accident, defined the package accident 219.5 of the involved the damage excess of the current reporting threshold resulting in a reportable injury, damage to railroad property of $150,000 or more, fatal train accident, the train incident with involved fatality involving on-duty railroad employee, passenger train accident, reportable injury with any person, the train accident with the railway equipment accident involved the damage and the excess of the current the reporting threshold involving the passenger change. B, exception, no test must be recorded in case of the collision between the railroad with the rolling stock with the motor vehicle, the other high with the conveyance of the railway, high grade crossing. No test may be required in conveyance for the accident incident with the cause of the severity which wholly attributed to the natural cause of the flood, tornado, other natural disaster, vandalism, trespass to determine the base for the object of the document facts of the railroad representative of the railroad responding scene. Good faith determination of the railroad representative of the responding to the scene of the accident of the incident must determine the accident incident fall within the requirements of paragraph A section of the exemption of the described in paragraph B of the section, and the duty of the railroad representative to make the reasonable injury with the fact of the necessary to make the such determination to make such injury of the railroad representative must consider the need to obtain specimen as soon as practical order to determine the presence of the absence and impairment of the substance of the responsible contemporary of the accident incident, and the railroad representative is satisfied with the requirement of Section 8 of the making of the responsible inquiry with the representative the exercise of good faith and judgment making the required determination. The railroad representative making the determination required with the section may not be in the person directly involved in the accident incident. The section does not prohibit the consultation between the respondent and railroad representative at the higher level of the railroad. Officials with the responding railroad representative must make the facility factual determination with the requirement of this section. Upon specific requirement requested made with the railroad, the associated administrative safety, the affiliated associated administrative delegate the railroad provide the report describing any decision personnel whether the responding the railroad representative with respect whether in the accident incident qualifies as the testing report must be affirmed. The decision making must be provided with the FRA within 24 hours of 72 hours. The request for the report must include the facts on reported by the responding representative with the base of the line with the decision was made. The person making the decision for the estimate of the railroad property damage may be made by the person that is the scene. Must be made the description of the specific physical damage provided by the on-scene of the railroad representative. 5. In case of the accident involving the passenger equipment, the host railroad may rely on the damage estimate provided by the passenger railroad which present at the scene. They're not making a decision with the testing required subject to the same with the requirements of physical damage specifically prescribed. A railroad must not require the employee to provide the urine and blood or urine specimen under the authority of the procedure for the subject in life if the railroad has a determination for the required section based upon the reasonable inquiry of the good faith judgment of the judge does not act with excess for the authority upon the subpart if the representative has made the reasonable inquiry the excess without the good faith judgment but is later to determine the investigation that one or more of the conditions thought to have the required testing were not into the fact. President, however, the section does not excuse the railroad from any of the errors arising from the mistake of the law. The application for the testing criteria other than contained in this part. A railroad is not in violation of the subpart if the representative had made such reasonable inquiry if that good faith judgment. Nevertheless, the error is determined if the post-accident testing is not required. An accident within the respect of the railroad has made the reasonable inquiry with the exercise of good faith judgment determine the fact that it's necessary to apply with the criteria contained in paragraph A of the section to deem the qualifying event with the first verse of the specifying analysis reporting otherwise. Purpose. An event with the specimen with the collective following the event with determine the FRA is not to qualify with the event with the meaning of the section of the FRA direct the designated laboratory to destroy the specimen material and substance submitted to the refrain of disclosing any personal result of the analysis conducted. 219.203 responsibility of the railroad employees. Employees tested following each of the accident incident prescribed in 219.2 when the railroads may take all the practical steps to ensure the equivalent employee of the railroad directly involved with the accident and provided blood, urine, and specimen of the toxicological testing by the FRA. The specimen employee can cooperate with the provision of the specimen that's described in the paragraph in this part of appendix C of this part. If it's a condition for the mandatory toxicological testing, the railroad may also require the employee to provide breathing of the testing of the accordance with the procedures set forth in Title 40 of this title. If the part is such that the testing does not interfere with the timely collection of the required specimen. Such employees must specifically include every operating with the employee assigned with the crew member of the any terrain involved with the accident incident, with any case for the operating with dispatcher, single maintainer, or other covered employee that directly variously involved with the circumstance of the accident incident. With the employees must also be required to provide specimen. The employee must exclude from testing under the following circumstances that indicate that the accident incident testing is mandated under the statute 219-201A2 with the impact of the accident, 219-201A3 with the fatal train incident, 219-201A4 the passenger train accident, and the injury. If the railroad representative immediately determine the basis for the specific information the employer has no role in covering the severity of the accident incident, the railroad representative must consider that any of the such information immediately available at the time of the qualifying event with the determination is made with the 219-201. The following provisions cover the accident incident involved with non-covered employees suffering with non-covered employees are not subject to testing under the subpart testing that remains non-covered employee where the fatality, injured train accident incident required. Timely specimen collection of the railroad must make the reasonable efforts of the ship with the specimen that provided with as soon as after the possible accident incident. The paragraph B must not be construed with the employee within inquired with the test of performing the immediately aftermath of the accident incident. They have to do any duty made with the necessary for the preservation of life of the property. However, the practical the railroad must utilize the other employee to perform such duties and care for the passenger train with the proper condition for the continue with the next station for the destination for any accident incident. But the railroad must conserve the safety conveniency of the passenger determination whether the crew is immediately available for testing. The relief of the crew must be called to leave the train as soon as possible. Covered employees who may be subject to testing on the subpart must be retained in duty staff at the period notice necessary to make determinations required by the statute 219-201 the section, but it is also appropriate to command police specimen collection procedure. But the employee may not be recalled for the testing of the SWAT if the employee has released under the release from duty under the normal procedure of railroad, except that the employee may be immediately recalled for the testing. An employee cannot be retained with the duty staff because the employee went off duty under the normal area for procedure being contact with the railroad supervisor and instructed to remain on duty depending on the completion of the required determination. In the case of the dispatcher, single maintainer remote over the scene of the accident who was unaware of the occurrence of the time the employee went off duty. The railroad's preliminary investigation contemporarily with the determination required in 219-201 and indicate the clearly probability that the employee played the major role in the cause of severity of the accident incident. The accident incident actually occurred during the employee's duty tour of the employee who has been transported to receive the medical care is not relieved of the duty for the purpose of the section. Nothing in the section prohibits the subsequent testing of the employee who has failed to remain available for the testing is required, who is absent without leave. The subsequent testing does not excuse the refusal of the employee timely provided required specimen. Place of specimen collection. Employees must be transported to an independent medical facility where the specimens must be obtained. The railroad must be designated for the testing of the one or more of such facilities. Responsibility proximity of any of the location of the railroad conduct for the operation for the designated must be made with the basis of the willing fullness for the faculty facility to conduct the specimen collection from the ability of the facility to complete the specimen collection properly with a professional according to the preventive requirements for this part. All cases of the blood may be drawn with only qualified medical professional and qualified technician subject to the supervision qualified professional. In the case of the injured employee, the railroad must request the treating medical facility to obtain the specimens. Obtaining the cooperation of the facility and seeking the cooperation of the medical facility, obtaining the specimen on the part of the railroad shall be necessary to make the specific reference to the requirements for this subpart injury employed with the unconscious otherwise unable evidence consists of the procedure of the treatment of the medical facility to climb and obtain the medical specimen. After having been acquainted with the requirements for this subpart, the railroad must immediately notify the duty of the officer of the National Response Center at 800-424-800 8801-800-424-8802 with the stating of the employee's name of the medical facility and location of the name of the appropriate decision authority over the medical facility, the telephone number to which the person with the disease the effort will take the appropriate measure for the obtain the natural required specimen. The discretion of the physician. Nothing in some parts may be constructed with limitation of discretion of the physician to determine whether the drawing of the blood specimen is consistent with the health of an injured employee or an employee affected with any other condition that it may be proved the drawing of the specified quantity of the blood. 219-205 specimen collection and the handling. Generally, the urine blood specimen must be obtained, marked with the preserved and handled may be available for FR consistent with the requirements of the technical specification of the Appendix C, but as part of information requirements in order to process the specimen and analyze significance. Laboratory findings notify the railroad and the employee for the result of the necessary obtaining with the basic information concerning the accident incident and any treatment that administered after incident. But after accident incident, accordingly, the railroad representative must complete the information required with the form FRA 618-073 revised shipping with the specimen. Each of the employees subject to testing must cooperate in the completion of the required information of the FRA form 618-074 revised with the inclusion of the shipping of the kit In process of the specimen, the railroad representative may request an appropriately representative of the medical facility complete with the remaining portion of the information for each of the form 618074 with the one form 618073 with the form typically equipped with each for the group of the specimen 618074 must be formed and typically equipped with each of the employment provided specimen for 618073 and 618074 with the maybe or with the laboratory specified in appendix B. This is part of the forms also provided with the railroad to free of the charge of the C, paragraph C with the section. Shipping care of the FRA laboratory designated with Appendix B to have this part of the make available for the purchase of the limited number of the standard shipping kit for the purpose of routing the handle with the toxicological specimen on the subpart with the possible specimen must be placed in shipping kit, prepared to ship them in accordance with the instructions provided with the kit in Appendix C to this part. 2 kits may be ordered directly with the laboratory designated with Appendix B of this part. FRA maintains limited number of the kits for the fitted field in office with Class 3 railroad that may utilize the FRA possession rather than possession, maintaining such kind of kits on property. The shipping of the specimen must be also shipped as soon as possible, prepaid air express for the air freight with other means of adequate that ensure the delivery of 24 hours from the time of the shipment to the laboratory to designate Appendix B of the part with the express cure with the break up available to the railroad must request the medical facility to transfer the sealed toxicological directly to the express core or transportation of the core pick up the available to the medical facility with the specimen or electric than any other reason for promptly transfer the medical facility cannot be used. Be assured the railroad promptly transport the sealed shipping kit with the holding of the specimen the most expeditious point of the shipment of Viva Air Express the air freight with the equivalent means the railroad must maintain the document secure chain with the custody of the kit from the release of the medical facility delivering the transportation the described Appendix C of this part. 219-206 FRA accept the breath test results. The documentation of the breath test results must be available with the FRA consistent with the railroad with the subpart technical specifications set forth in Appendix C of this part. Fatality. If in the case of an employee fatality, an accident incident described in 219-201, body fluid and tissue with the specimen must be obtained with the remains of the employee with the toxicological testing to ensure the specimens are time collected. Railroad must immediately notify the appropriate local authorities such as the corporate coroner medical exam of the face held with the requirements of the subpart make it available to the shipping kit. The requesting local authority assist in obtaining the necessary blood tissue specimen. The railroad must also keep secretly assistant of the custodian that remains of the person without the locality of the local authority. B. If the local authority custodians remain declined to cooperate with obtaining the necessary specimen, the railroad must immediately notify the duty of the Officer National Response Center 800-424-8801, 800-424-8802 with providing the following information: date, location of the accident, railroad, accident or incident, railroad, name of the deceased, the name of the telephone number of the custodian, the remains, name of the telephone number of the local authority, and the contact of the coroner, the medical examiner, the pathological aviation medical designer, and the qualified personnel with the authorized remove of the required body fluid, the tissue specimen for the remains required for the railroad with the FRA pursuant to this part, and such action that the person delegated to the FRA administrator under the section 20107, 20108, Title 49 U.S. Code, but not agent of the Secretary of the purpose of the Federal Tort Claim, Chapter 171, Title 28 U.S. Code. Such qualified professional may rely upon the representative of the railroad, the FRA representative with respect to the occurrence of the event with the requirement of toxicological test conducted with the coverage of the decrease employed under this part. Appendix C of the part specified the blood body fluid test tissue specimen required for the toxicological analysis of the case of the fatality. 219-209. Report of the test and refute the railroad that has experienced one more of the events with a specimen were obtained with the provided with the private prompt with the telephone notification summaries summarizing such event notification immediately provided with the duty officer of the National Response Center, the 800-424-8802 with the Office of Safety FRA 202-493-6313. Telephonic report must contain the name of the railroad, name of the title, the telephone number of the person making the report, time of the day, location, accident incident, brief summary of the circumstance of the accident incident, including the basis of the testing, the number, the name of the occupants for the employee tested. If the railroad is unable to result with a non-cooperation of the employee to any other reason for obtaining the specimen content to provide with the FRA requirements about this part of the subpart, the railroad must make the concise narrative of the report to the reason such failure is appropriate to any action to respond to the cause of such failure. The report must be appended to the report with the accident incident required to submit within Part 225 of this chapter. If the test is required with the section not administered within 4 hours following the accident incident, the railroad must prepare to maintain on the filing the record stating the reason for the test was not promptly administered. The records must be submitted to the FRA upon the request of the FRA Associated Administrator of Safety. Alright, 219-211, the analyst of the file of laboratory design with Appendix B with the part of the undertake the promptly to provide under the subpart consists of the need to develop the relevant information proposed, produced in the complete with the report with the specimen and analyst of the alcohol to controlled substance, non-controlled substance specified with the FRA under the protocol specified with the FRA with the substance for the baby tested any with the one naturally synthetic that is derived with the specimen may be analyzed with the impairing substance specified by the FRA necessary for the particular accident investigation. Result of the post-accident toxicological testing and controlled substance for the controlled conducted under the subpart of the report with the railroad medical review officer with the employee the MRO with the railroad must retrieve the red test for the result of the information concerning the medical the you for the administrator the drug provided on the subpart of the same confidential name of the subject of the subpart H for the part except with publicly disclosed the FRA of the National Transportation Safety Board. With the respective supervising employee tested the pop with alcohol controlled substance for the designated laboratory must be the review of the railroad medical review officer with the respective name for the claim you for the administrator for the medication consistent with the statute 219-103. The code of the account with the laboratory finding with the medical review officer to promptly report the result with each of the review of the associate administrator for the FRA Washington D.C. 20590. Such report must be written and must reference for the employee of the railroad accident incident type and location of envelope must be marked with addition administrative confidential attention alcohol drug and program manager. The report must be stated whether the MRO medical review officer reported as the result of the testing employee of the railroad positive negative basis if there's any determination analytes and detect the laboratory derived the authorized including the statement of the compound prescribed dosage and frequency of any of the restriction imposed by the authorized medical practitioner unless specified request and the FRA and the written with the medical review officer may not disclose the FRA under enlightening physical condition which is the name medication authorized by the administrator. The FRA is not bound to the railroad medical review officer determination for the concern with the FRA in relation to the accident incident investigation with respect to any of the enforcement action upon the consideration. To the extent permitted by law of the FRA, retrieve the test results indicate the medical use of controlled substance and consistent with the statute 219-103 for the information concerning the medical authorized drug use for the administrator of the provided accidents of such testing, administrator of the confidential of the holding public disclosure expect with the necessary for the considered information accident investigation including revelation of the determination probable cause of the however there is further provided with the section FRA must provide the result of the testing under the subpart of the supporting documentation of the National Transportation Safety Board. Alright, any employee may be responsible for writing the result of the test prior to the preparation of any final investigation concerning the accident incident. If the employee wishing to respond with the ability to do so with a letter addressed to the Alcohol, Drug, and Program Manager for the Office of Safety, FRA 1200 New Jersey Avenue, Southeast Washington, D.C. 20590, within 45 days of the receipt test for the result of any submission of the must refer to the accident date with the railroad date, location of the may state with the position occupied by the employee date of the accident incident for the must identify the information contained that they are an employee's request for withheld the public disclosure of grounds personal property, but the decision whether they honor such a request must be made by the FRA on the basis of the controlling law. F1. The toxicological report may be contained with the statement of the pharmacological significance of the FRA with the party for the understanding of the data of the report. No such statement must be constructed with the finding of the probable cause of the accident incident. With the exemption of the post-accident, the test results of non-controlled substance toxicological report part of the report of the accident incident, therefore subject to the limitation of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 20903, report of the prohibition of using the report any purpose of the civil action, the damage result with the material mentioned in the report. G1. The public interest ensure the railroad disciplinary action that may result with the accident incident within the testing required with the subpart disposed on the basis of the most complete, reliable information available to responsive action with appropriate, therefore during the interval between the accident incident and the day of the railroad receive the notification for the result of the toxicological and the provision of the collective bargaining agreements, the establishment maximum period of the charging of the employee with the rule violation for the holding the investigation may not be deemed to run as an offensive involving the accident incident if such the periods must be told. The provisions may be construed to excuse the railroad from any of the obligation timely charge of the employee with the provide the actual notice of whether the railroad obtained sufficient information for training, alcohol, drug, or use of impairments for the possession of other rule violation prior to the receipt of the toxicological analysis. The provision does not authorize the holding an employee with the out of service pending of the receipt of the toxicological analysis noted as to restrict the railroad from taking any action for the appropriate case. Except as provided in 219-201 with respect to non-qualifying event sheet specimen, including each of the split specimen provided under the subpart of the retained not less than 3 months following the day of the accident incident with the 2 years from the day of the accident incident with the case of the specimen test for the positive of the alcohol controlled substance. Post-mortem specimen must be made available to the National Transportation Safety Board on request. An employee be donor made within 60 days of the toxicological report request for his or her split with the specimen to be tested for the designated laboratory within another laboratory certified with the Health and Human Services under the Department of Guidelines Federal Workplace Drug Testing Programs that has available the appropriate the validated assessment of the fluid and compound declarative of the positive of the summon and analyses of the deteriorated during the storage of the detector level of the compound shall technically appropriately be rewarded with the conservative the cooperative for the original test. The request for the retest shall be written to specify the railroad and accident and date of the location be signed by the employee to owner to be addressed to the Associate Administrative Safety Federal Road Administration, Washington, D.C. 20590. The designated administrator confidentially at the attention for the alcohol drug program manager. The expense for the employee requested split specimen test for the laboratory other than the laboratory designated under this part shall be borne by the employee. Alright, 219.213, unlawful refusal of the consequence. If the qualification employee refuses to cooperate with providing breath, blood, or urine specimen following the accident, the incident of the specimen, the subpart must be withdrawn, covered the service, must be deemed disqualified, covered service for the period of 9 months in accordance with the conditions specified in 219.107. Procedures prior to withdrawing of the employee with the coverage of the services of the section railroad must provide the notice for the reason for the action of the opportunity of hearing above before the presiding officer, therefore charging the official of the employee with the entitled to the procedural protection set out in statute 219.104D. Subject to the hearing required with the section must determine whether the employee refused to submit the testing having been requested to submit the under the authority of the subpart with the representative of the railroad in determining whether the disqualification is required in the hearing. The official with the side shall appropriate as also considered the following: whether the railroad makes the good faith determination based on reasonable inquiry of the accident incident with whether the mandatory testing requirements of the subpart in case of the blood test was refused on the ground that it will have inconsistent with the employee's health, whether the refusal made in the good faith and based on the medical advice. Subpart D, testing for cause.